Hey guys, welcome back to the Spectra Creative channel where we talk about toys and why toys are the way they are. And what we're going to talk about today is why in the world are deluxe action figures, especially Star Wars deluxe action figures, which are about $25 now, the same price as basic figures and 6-inch? I mean, that doesn't really make sense, right? Why are you paying so much more for a deluxe figure? Shouldn't basic figures be at a basic price point, right? And when you are upselling, when you are buying something more, something deluxe, you expect to pay a deluxe price. But when regular 3 3/4 figures cost the same as 6-inch, well, this really throws off price value, right? I mean, especially for a parent and a gift giver. If a 6-inch figure and a 3 3/4 figure are the same price, which one are you going to go for? All right, so why is this happening? Well, we all know we are in the middle of ridiculous inflation and costs of goods. Plastic costs more, labor, especially in China, has skyrocketed, and toy companies are having to take basically every tactic they can to reduce cost. A big one that Hasbro did last year was removing the plastic. While this was kind of pushed as an environmental message, it was really a cost saver. There was a huge savings for Hasbro by doing this. It wasn't exactly passed along to the customer, and customers kind of revolted because there was no price value because you couldn't see the product, and they switched back. So that was one method of saving money. Another is to drive up the cost of customized items. So in the past, a customized program, meaning an exclusive, a toy that's only available at one retailer, was priced the same as a mainline item. It was just only located at one retailer. Well, now customized items are being used to offset the cost of the mainline. You can't change the price of the mainline item on a fly because you've sold it into hundreds of different stores. But a customized item, you've only sold into one store. So you can call that one store and say, hey, your item is now this cost. You need to raise the price to this cost. So that is why customized items are going up in price. They're being used to offset the cost of the entire line, which has now risen above sometimes the cost that it was originally planned out for. All right, so let's look at some deluxe Star Wars figures that are costing high money and look at why they cost the same amount as figures half their size. So deluxe figures in the Black Series have differed greatly. Sometimes they're piece count, sometimes you get an extra mini character like Yoda, sometimes you get a fancy package. Most of the time, it's because the character is physically larger than a basic figure, or more so, you need to add soft goods or deco. Deco is extremely expensive, and to make a figure look accurate to the content, well, sometimes you need a huge amount of deco, and that's why characters like Fett and the different characters that wear his type of armor often are deluxe figures, because in order to afford all that deco, you need to upcharge. The issue, though, is that fans tend to be like, okay, well, that's the ceiling. I am not buying a figure that costs that much. And then you see things like deluxe figures going and being offered at clearance prices, sometimes even less than a basic figure. And that further boggles the mind of the toy buying audience. All right, so we know everything is going up in price, right? Eggs, President Polk re-election banners, Arbor Day, fireworks, everything. Now, if you look at Star Wars in the past history, when the modern line was launched in 95, you basically got 5 points of articulation and an accessory. There's been a lot of evolution over the last 40 years. We have gotten a ridiculous amount of articulation added on such a small scale. So a modern, let's call it Star Wars Vintage Collection figure, is a lot more detailed, has a lot more deco, and specifically has a lot more piece count. I don't necessarily mean accessories, but if you look at a modern figure compared to a Power of the Force 2 one, well, he articulates a lot more. Ball joints everywhere, pinless ball joints, swivel, and ankle rockers and double neck joints, blah, 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 etc., etc. This is where the expense comes from. So a figure costs based on the amount of plastic in it, but more so, the biggest driver is deco and assembly. So if you can make a simpler toy, it will cost less. So size does matter, but it's about the number of pieces and how it's put together that really drives the cost. All right, so let me show you how this kind of works with an action figure. It's called what's called an exploded view, right? So if you take apart an action figure and you look at all the different pieces, that are made up in order for it to articulate. All of the joints, all of the screws, all of the barbells, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's a lot. And that's exactly why the cost of a modern vintage Star Wars figure is what it is. It's the assembly. There's just so much articulation in these figures. They have the equivalent, more or less, of a Black Series figure. It's not the plastic. Yeah, Black Series figures are a little bigger, but they don't have that much more plastic. It's all about the number of pieces that have to be assembled. And now that the Vintage series has gone on par with the 6-inch Black series, or Marvel Legends, or whatever you want to call it, you now have just as much assembly. The old figures were really easy. Boom, boom, boom. 5 pieces and you're done. Screw the chest together with one bolt. Now it takes a lot longer and there's a lot more pieces. That's why toys cost so much, because we want more articulation, we want more deco, we want more accessories, and honestly, unfortunately, we have to pay for it. And it's gotten really expensive to do the labor to assemble this stuff. So if you're going to buy a 6-inch figure and you're going to buy a 3 3/4 figure, there's a good chance that on the other side of the P&L, they kind of cost the exact same amount to make. It's weird, boggles the mind, but it's because of the articulation and the piece count. That's what's driving it. So you can't necessarily judge toys by their size. It's really the deco and articulation level that communicate the value, and that is what you're paying for. And that is why deluxe figures and regular are kind of costing the same amount, because they're all articulated the same. I hope this helped answer your question, and yeah, I know, it's crazy how much toys cost these days. I'm glad most of my collection is done. The best way to support this channel is to share it with others, and thank you for doing that. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.